Okay.
Hi, ladies. Welcome to High Heels and Destiny. I'm so glad to have you ladies tune in this morning. As you know, this kind of focus on taking women from their pain to purpose. I have no other than Nicole R. Smith. She's an author and a motivational speaker for women, for single mothers. So, Nicole, I'm going to allow you to introduce yourself.
Hi. Naranda did a perfect job. My name is Nicole R. Smith, and I'm literally saying exactly what she just said. Motivational speaker, author, workforce development specialist. My heart's desire is to really encourage people in general, no matter what the lane I am in. And so this morning we're just talking about, being a woman and being a woman who is gone through things. And if my journey and where I am and what God has brought me through can help somebody else. I love, Naranda, what your website said is to reach one and grab one and bring them up. So if that's what I have an opportunity to do, then I'm so grateful to be able to do it. And thank you so much for getting up so early for me. I know y'all, you better thank her. She got up early for me.
I want to thank you so much. This is the most earliest interview. Nicole threw it at me this time because I have never did an interview at 8 o'clock. Y'all, this was a struggle. 8 o'clock.
I will make it worth your while. I will make it worth your while. I do not want to. I won't. It'll be worth it. It'll be worth it.
Hey, that's the least. That's the least I can do. That is the least that I can do. So, okay, Nicole, we're going to jump right into it. Nicole is on here, you guys. She's going to share her story about a divorce. She went through 2 divorces, and she's going to share how she went through, how she overcame it. And I am also recently divorced, so it is something, very, very challenging for women. And I noticed, like, within the last year, 2020, so many women have went through divorces, whether the husband just left. It was just so many marriages just went through divorces last year. And so, sometimes when you see women going through this, or when you don't know that other women is going through this, one lady that I reached out on YouTube, and I did an interview with her, and she went through a similar story that I went through. I'm like, oh my God, it's like me talking to myself in the mirror. And so it's like you feel like you by yourself, but it's so many other women that's going through what you're going through. And I'm like, okay, God, is this a spiritual thing? So Nicole, we're gonna just kind of focus in on you. And so we want to talk about your first divorce. Okay. So my first question is to you is, did you come from a single parent household, or did you have your mom and dad growing up? I always ask people that.
So it was half and half. My parents were married and got divorced when I was a freshman in high school.
Okay.
So half and half.
Half and half. Okay. So you growing up as a little girl, is marriage something that you like wanted to do, like every girl's dream? Was that something that was important for you?
Well, since we're just being real, the only reason I wanted to be married is because then I could legally have sex. But it wasn't like, oh, I'm like just being able to have sex without a conscience and being able to do, in the eyes of the Lord, like I just didn't want to be doing wrong, right? But it was never like, because I didn't really grow up with a real understanding of what marriage was. All I knew was that you grew up, you get married, you have kids, you die. Like, the whole institution and sanctity of marriage, it wasn't like, oh, I want to build a life with somebody because whatever. It was like, well, in order for me to have sex, I have to be married. So, yeah. And then, that's when you have kids and stuff. So, but it wasn't this, I didn't have the idea of the beautiful thing of what I know it to be now.
Right.
So then, yes, I grew up with the understanding that, you get married, whatever. And then, but it wasn't like, I wasn't that person who, has their whole wedding planned and they're just waiting to insert husband, like whoever that dude happens to be. That was not me. I wasn't that type of person at all.
So let me ask you this, we live in a society where so many people idolize marriage. Everybody want to be married. Everybody want to be married. And so now that I'm 35, I have so much knowledge on marriage, right? I feel that, do you feel that, in our younger, like 18, 19, 20, that younger stage of our life, our parents never really identify and tell us what marriage consists of. Everyone always say, get married, get a husband, have a family, whoop. No one really sit down and educate you on the insights of marriage, that it's not every day of being happy. It's not every day of, that you guys are going to go through challenges, that there may be infidelity. Like, no one ever sit down and prepare you for that. Do you agree or disagree?
I absolutely agree, especially if you're coming from a spiritual household or like a Christian background. Like, that's never discussed. It's just literally, it is, you pray for your spouse, you get married, and that's when you have your kids. But the work that goes into having a successful marriage is never discussed. And then even when, you see people who have been married for like 60 years, sometimes it's like, well, we're just married for 60 years because we don't believe in divorce, but they're like miserable. And it's like, well, you should have just, is it better to stay married and be miserable? Like, I don't know about that either, just to say for the sanctity of marriage. Like, if I'm going to be married and connected to somebody, I don't want to feel like, I don't have any, that I don't have like the water to fulfill me, right? That I'm married, but now my water supply is cut off and I'm like parched and can't drink of anything to be fulfilled because I'm married. Like, that's not a way to live. It does say till death do us part. It didn't necessarily say, till your last breath. You could be physically dead, emotionally, well, not physically dead, but like, emotionally dead,
mentally,
just, yes, mentally, all of the, you don't have to be 6 feet underground to be in a dead relationship. That's just how I see it. So, but yeah.
That's good, because you're the first person I ever heard say that, because everybody always think about when death do you part, they think about death, but people never think about mentally, emotionally, physically dead. You're dead.
Well, let me tell you, because when I was in my first marriage, I was so like, it just was not a very good situation. And I remember talking to a friend of mine, and I was just like, I really think I'm going to get a divorce. And she was like, but if you get a divorce, you're going to go to hell. I was like, go to hell. I was like, my everyday life is hell right now. Like, that's okay, because I'm living that right now. So, it just, so just that whole rethinking of, what does it mean by till death do us part, right? And I don't mean that as an out, that one day if you have a bad day, this isn't working, it's death to the relationship, because I'm not, that's also not what I'm saying as an easy out either. But I say it as a caution to be even that much more careful when you enter into it. So,
I think it's so important that women really need to be, and what I try to do is educate women on what marriage entail, because what happens is that people go into marriages with these facades, like, he's going to walk in and say, honey, I'm home. I miss you. I love you. You're beautiful. And all this great stuff. And see, what happened is when they get into marriage and this stuff don't look like what TV, Lifetime shows and Instagram and Facebook and these pictures, then people instantly wants out. Like, no, this is not right, because everybody got this thing. I want to be happy, 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 happy. And happy ain't going to always exist. It's just not going to always exist. And I think that it's important that women know, like, hey, it's not going to be you coming home and he say, I love you every day. It's going to be times you cook and he walk right past you. It's going to be times he cook that he don't even eat your food. It's going to be times like you guys just, when you look out the window and you get a car pull up, you like, oh my God, he is home. And I'm transparent because a lot of people don't tell the truth, but I'm going to get the truth out here. Like, people really know these are conversations that I have with other women that they may not say, but I'm willing to share it and put it out there for them.
Right. It is absolutely real. And the thing about marriage is communication, point blank, period. I think the two most important things are respect and communication. I'm sorry, love really don't have much to do with it. Chemistry doesn't have anything to do with it. Your feelings have nothing to do with it. Well, and anyway, that's a whole nother conversation. But respect and communication are everything. And if you do not have either one, and it's not one or the other, you have to have both. And if you don't, it's going to be troublesome and it's going to be tragic. It will be tragic. How do I know? I've been through too. So I got you, so yeah.
And I heard Dr. Miles Monroe. I don't know if you ever heard him before, but Dr. Miles Monroe,
him.
He said that love do not keep a marriage together. It's wisdom and knowledge. Me and my husband love each other, but we're divorced, but it's wisdom and knowledge and understanding is what keeps a marriage together. You can love each other all day long, but if you have no wisdom, no knowledge and understanding, it absolutely means nothing.
Nada.
So Nicole, let's jump into it. What age was you when you first got your first divorce?
I was, I think 22 or 23.
So what age did you marry?
I think I was like 21. Yeah, I was 21 and I was married for about like 9 months. And my husband just was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I was like, what do you mean you don't want to do this anymore? First of all, it's only been 9 months. Like, but we haven't even made a whole year. What are you talking about? So he just was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I was like, well, cool. I'm not trying to be or stay anywhere where I'm not wanted. If you don't want to be in this, I'm out. I'm not going to sit here and be one of those people, oh, please keep me. You out, I'm out. So I leave. And then I find out I'm pregnant. I'm like, dang it. All right. So this is God's way of saying we're supposed to be together. Not true, but whatever. So I was ready to just get a divorce anyway. But my lawyer at the time was like, do not get divorced until you have that child and you put his name on the birth certificate. And I was one of those, I don't need a man. I don't want anything from him. I'm just going to take my daughter and I'm going to raise her and do it. He was just like, just listen to me. Don't get divorced until his name is on the birth certificate. So I was like, fine. So that's why it took me so long, because we were married by 21 and I had her at 22 and then got divorced at 23. But we only lived in the same house for like 9 months. So,
what prompted you to get married? Like 2 years, but what prompted you to get married at, how did the marriage state start? Was it like, okay, we out of high school, let's just get married so I can have sex? Or was it really love? Or it was something like, okay, I want to walk right in God's eyes? What was it that at that age? Because at 21, I'm thinking about, let's go to the club, let's act crazy, let's party, let's just turn up. At 21, like marriage, like boys got cooties at that age for me. So what was in your mind at that point where, okay, I want to get married and do this thing at a young age?
Well, I was a pretty conservative Christian, very conservative at that age. So I lived pretty much like by the book. And long story short, like literally, I was just like, well, I want to have sex. And I told my mom, I was like, I didn't tell her like that, but I was like, oh gosh, now that I'm thinking about it, I hope she doesn't watch this. She doesn't know all of this. Okay. Anyway, but I was like, hey mom, I'm thinking of getting married. And she was like, that boy don't want to marry you. He's just trying to get in your pants. And I was like, okay. And then I was like, well, I'll show her. No, that's not what I really thought. But I was like, I just know that you're not supposed to have sex without getting married. And I wanted to have sex. And this was the person that I was dating. And so he literally was like, I think we were just like sitting around one afternoon, and he was just like, do you just want to go down to the Justice of the Peace? And I was like, okay. And we went down there, and mind you, like, and I had to wear like the best, this is just the funniest story to me now. It's because I can laugh about it now. But I had to wear like the best clothes that I had because I was going to get married. Well, I mean, I was a college student and I didn't have a lot, and I wasn't going to call and ask my mom. So I went into my closet, and the nicest thing I had was this all black dress. So I literally got married in all black. It was like it was an
Wow.
omen. And I was crying walking down the aisle because it was like, and they weren't tears of joy. I was just kind of like, am I doing the right thing? Like bawling on the way. And nobody asked me, are you sure this is something you really want to do? And I just think back, like if somebody would have actually ever really had just asked me, would it have been different? Who knows? I don't know, but it doesn't matter. So they didn't ask. So I went through and I got married and then went back to the dorm room that night. And the only reason my mom knew was because I had to move out of the dorm and I had to give her my new phone number and address. I was like, oh, by the way, I'm moving out. I got married, and that went over brilliantly. Gotta tell you. Not so much. But yeah, so it wasn't like praying and hearing from the Lord and like this whole beautiful thing. It was what's the word I'm looking for? It was off of principle more than anything. It was the guidelines. I was following the guidelines of marriage. You have to get married before you have sex. So I guess that's what I'll do.
So let me
Because I
ask
didn't
you.
understand it. I didn't understand it. You know what I mean?
So I want to say something. When you said that when you was walking down the aisle, you was crying, tears of pretty much death. I think
Yeah.
that's too important because I have heard ladies say the signs be there, like they already see the signs and things like maybe the wedding day, things won't go right, things is just downfalling. All the signs is there. You don't have a feeling of joy before even walking down the aisle. How important is it to take those signs serious?
Well, I think it's very, very important. Um, and one of the things that helps with all of those signs, in my personal opinion, is premarital counseling. Um, because some of those signs are made relevant right there sometimes. Um, but it's one of those things, if you do not have peace about it, do not go forward. And I'm not talking about pre-wedding jitters or like where you get nervous, and because I think some of that is normal. But it's also a really fine line. Um, but if you do not have peace about it, don't do it. It's not worth it. Have the conversation. It's better to be honest about it up front, because if it is supposed to be and you wait 3 months or a year, cool. But if it's not, that waiting 3 months could make all the world of difference of tragedy and heartache. Um, but it's hard to say because like in my second marriage, I didn't have any of those kind of signs. Everything was great. I had peace. It was like, woo, yeah. Because of what I went through the first time, I was like, I'm not doing this again. Completely different experience. But that time, what I had not.
Wait a minute before we go there, Nicole. Okay,
Okay.
so with the first divorce, I mean with the first so as you guys 23, you'd have had the child, you guys are divorced and going through this divorce process. How did that affect you mentally and emotionally, considering the fact, okay, you guys was young, you got married, now you have a child with him, and you guys, because when you have that child, everybody wants to have their life where mom, dad, we are family, and now you're 23 and you're going through this stage of alone, being a single mother. how did that affect you, or did that even affect you mentally and emotionally going through a divorce? What did it feel like?
Of course. It was like, not only who's going to want me because I'm divorced and it's going to make it look like I can't have a committed relationship, but now I'm coming along with baggage. Like, this was my thought. My beautiful daughter is not baggage. But at the time, I'm like, who's going to want, you know, me, and I'm coming along with a kid and a baby at that, just, am I even worthy? Am I, yeah, it does a doozy on you. But that's where the love of God and the power of God and his word gets you through. And I am not, just gaslighting. Like, that is the real, because every time I had those who would want me, it was followed by, you are wonderfully and beautifully made, and you are made in my image, and you are, you know, um, just all of the things that the scripture would just tell us and remind us of who I am. I am this the daughter of a king, and walk as such, because you are beautiful and bold and worthy and all of those things. And um this is how I created you to be. So how dare you not walk in who you are?
Ooh,
Okay.
good. That's good.
So, but yeah, on a daily basis, especially because now I'm the only one in my age group with a kid, and all my friends, because I was never a big club person. I was never, I didn't take my first drink till I was like 34 years old. I wasn't out partying. I was a virgin when I got married the first time, so I was a very conservative person. So I don't know where I was going with that. Um, so so now that I have this kid with me,
Mhm.
um, I'm just like, who's gonna want me? I first of all, how am I gonna meet anybody? Because I can't go out, because I have to have money for a babysitter. And at 23, I'm like, oh, I grew up overnight. Had to be responsible, had to have the job, have to do whatever, where all my friends could go out and hang out and do whatever. I was always taking care of my daughter. So, which is not a big thing. I am grateful for it, because she kept me out of a lot of trouble, because I had to be responsible, kept me from doing a lot of crazy things. So, but yeah, definitely. It definitely messes with you. You feel unwanted, you feel unworthy, you feel like, because like, how do you, especially if you've done everything that you can and you've poured everything into this person, and they're like, yeah, it's not enough, I'm out. Like, what?
Yes. But
You know,
at
at the
least that
point,
happened to you at 21, 23, because this is happening with women right now in 30s and 40s and
well,
50s.
look, it happened then too. And it's even worse then.
Yeah.
Like, so yeah. So that was the first time. So
But wait a
um
minute, Nicole, how did you transition from being married to going to a single mother? How did you transition? What was that transition process like?
it was slow. It was slowly, like, uh the tangible of it happened immediately, right? So
Mhm.
I had the baby, we went, put his name on the birth certificate, got divorced. That was that. But I focused on me. I focused on building myself back up. I focused on my daughter. Those are the two things that I focused on. And then just kind of went into prayer and just was like, Lord, I just pray that you will provide a father for her. That was my biggest thing, was I did not want her to grow up without a father
Mm.
figure, a positive one, because I know that that's very important for little girls, so that they don't make questionable decisions when they get older, based upon, because the first relationship they have with a man is with their father, and then they tend to emulate that. So if a little girl has daddy issues, and the relationship she has are going to reflect that. So that was one of my biggest concerns. um and then uh he, unfortunately, he passed away when she was like 3 or 5, I don't remember, in a motorcycle accident.
Mhm.
So even more so, it was like, well, dang it. Now she really, really doesn't have a father figure. So Lord, how do we compensate, or how do we fill in for that? Because I also didn't want to just bring any dude around just because either, because I wasn't going to give my child issues because men are coming in and out all the time. I was like, no, there's still the standard. I still had to, like, you either had to shape up or you were out, and you didn't get to meet my daughter until you passed my test. And if you didn't pass my test, then you don't get the privilege of meeting my child. So it was, I mean, it wasn't easy, but it took a lot of just faith and knowing my worth and understanding that as I worked on myself, that my ex-husband chose incorrectly. And the poetic justice of it was, a few years later, he came back and was like, I made a mistake. And in my head, I was like, of course you did, but I didn't say anything, right? And after he passed away, his sister had said, he really loved you and really, you know, um, beat himself up that he let you go. So it was that confirmation was something that I had always tucked away and kept with me to remind me of my worth. But even if I hadn't got it from them, it was something that I needed to know and needed to believe in myself, because otherwise I would have just, any little Tom, Dick, or Harry that just came along with like, oh, you're so beautiful, I'll take care of you and your child. I would have fallen for that. And I'm like, boy, please, I don't need somebody to take care of me like that. I have a Father in heaven who's doing that. So you need to come with something else.
So
yeah.
my last question before we transition is, what did your healing process look like for the ladies that's going through a divorce? What did that healing process consist of?
Lots and lots of crying. And crying some more. And punching walls, like, not kidding, like, not theoretically, but like literally punching walls. They, pillows. But landing in my best is yet to come, and God knows what he has for me. And I just have to trust that. But it was hard. It wasn't easy. Nobody likes to be rejected. Right. Regardless if it's your fault or not. Rejection is rejection, point blank, period. Especially when you've done everything that you can, right? Because then, because at least if you knew you were a little cray, you'd be like, all right, well, okay, like, I understand, right? And when you have done everything that you know that you could do, and you've gone to counseling, and you laid yourself before the Lord prostrate and asked him, what do I need to change? And you are working on yourself, and you've done everything that the Lord has asked you to do, and then they still turn around and bounce. Yo, that kind of rejection is crazy. Right. Because you're like, that's not how that's supposed to work. Right. I can understand if I was like, talking down to him all the time and telling him he ain't no good, and and then I realized later, oh, maybe I shouldn't have been doing that, and maybe that's why. But when that's what they like. That's what make them act right. When you act all crazy, that's the one they just love to death. They can't get enough of those. I'm telling you. I have a story that I will tell you, but I cannot record it. But I will tell you, they want that crazy. Like, okay, and they get the love of the Lord, and they can't handle it. I don't want this. That's the rejection that's hard, because you're like, but I really did try to do everything correct, but that's okay, because that just means you didn't need that. As much as it sucks, as much as it hurts, and as much as it just hurts.
And you know what? I think that people don't know, but some people deal with the spirit of rejection, and that's why they cling to it so much. Because if you're not, like we were just talking about, you was talking about rejection. If you don't like rejection, you're not gonna be like, oh, reject me, baby, so I can love you more. But people who have dealt with rejection, maybe it can be a childhood issue, mama issue, whatever issue that they never dealt with before, they actually gravitate towards that, and it pulls them in, versus when, like you said, when you're trying to love them and you're trying to show them like, hey, this is what they don't want, that they want to go back to that familiar spirit, which is rejection, and it clings together.
And so that's why really going before God and asking him to show him yourself is important. Now, look, I caution you, don't ask if you don't really want to know, because he'll be like, oh, you want to know? And he'll hold that mirror up and you're like, oh my God. Don't ask God if you really don't want to know, because he will tell you. But he's also courteous enough that if you don't ask, he won't tell you. But that's not growth. So
Right.
grow through it, right? And it's hard. You're like, ooh, okay. Because they say, right, a lot of times they say you are what you attract.
Ooh.
So if you're attracting that same type of person, you're like, oh, I always keep dating the same person. But why? There's something in you,
yes,
that's attracting that.
yes,
There's
so
something
true.
in you that's it. So what is it? So if you keep finding yourself in the same type of relationship, what
Yes.
is it that's broken about you that needs to be fixed, that you don't attract that, or you don't allow it, or you don't enable it anymore? We
Yes.
can't always be pointing about, oh, they did. What did we do? We may not have done something like, to where like, oh, you did something, but the enabling is also so the not doing something is also doing something, if that makes sense. So yeah.
Okay, so let's transition. Okay, you were divorced. I mean, got divorced around 21. You got married at 21. You divorced at 23. Had a baby. You guys, officially divorced, separated, or whatever. You went through that transition, went through a healing process, and getting to know who you was as a woman. Want to build this life for your child, like most moms do. And then you come along, and then you get remarried again. And what age did your second marriage happen? What age was you, and how long was it from your first marriage?
So it was about 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was 33.
Mm-hmm.
I got married in I think it was like, yeah, it was 2000. It was either 2007, 2008. I think it was 2008. So it was about 8 to 10 years in between, and I was around 32, 33, 34, something like that. So, yeah.
So you meet this guy. How was that? What was that like? Okay, you've been a single mom. You've been, on this journey of raising you and your daughter, just going through a dating process, and voila, magic! You meet this guy. What was that like, meeting this guy, going from a single mother to remarrying over again? What was that?
So it was a little different because I had known him because we went to school together. We went to college together. So he knew me before my whole marriage, divorce situation, and then having a kid. So he kind of knew me through the whole process. And then it was like a friendship that kind of grew stronger kind of thing. And we decided to date and then decided to get married. So it wasn't like I met him, out and about or doing anything. It was there was some familiarity there because I had already known him from school.
So when you got married to him, when you guys decided to get married, was it because, hey, I'm in love, I want to marry him, or was it another thing like, well, okay, this is the next best thing for me to do, so let me do it?
No, I was like, oh, I love him. this is it. I'm so excited for, now I understand what marriage is about and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, that's what that was.
Okay. And so how long was the marriage?
That one was about 3.5 years.
Mm.
And it was also a huge learning experience because I didn't, even though I thought I knew him, I didn't. And that was just my ignorance. Like I just didn't know to ask certain questions. I just didn't know, because I was like, oh, well, I'm a Christian, you're a Christian, we both love the Lord, we're doing Bible study together. Yeah, girl, please, you better ask some questions. Ask some questions, because I've always been the type of person that you don't necessarily have to ask me. I will tell you. I'm like, this is who I am. I'm laying it out. Not everybody is like that. Some people are, oh, thank you for sharing with me who you are. Appreciate that. Mm-hmm. And that's it. They don't return the favor. So one of the biggest drawbacks for me in this one is that we had dated long distance, mm-hmm. which your communication in that aspect has to be even 10 times more if you're going to date like that. So long story short, after we got married, within 3 months, there was all sorts of stuff that I was learning about him that I had no idea. That had we been dating in the same city, I was like, what? We would have never gotten married, because I got to see who he was. Mm-hmm. And it was not who he was presenting to me, which was easy, because it's easy to have, to present yourself once a month when you see each other every weekend, and then you haven't seen each other. So it's like bliss. So you're not having those conversations, it's just, I don't know, you could just get away with stuff. So after I got married and I moved, I was like, who is this person? Who is this person? I mean, which is fine. So I was like, but I was willing to work on it, because I was like, I'm not going through this again. I already went through one. I don't want to be that person with the stigma of 2 divorces. Like, that's just not a good look for a good Christian woman. Like, it's just, I was like, no, I'm going to work through this and da, da, da. And, but long story short, one day, like so also to know about this person, we had dated before, and he was not being the man that he was supposed to be. So I was like, look, I have a child to raise that needs a man as a father, not a boy. I mean, I didn't say it like that. But I was like, you are not living up to the standard of what I need for myself and for my daughter. So I broke up with him. I broke up with him. And then he took some time to get himself right. And then he came back and he wanted to prove that he had changed and that he had grown up and he was able to do what he needed to do. So I was like, okay, cool. So we went through all that. So all of that is important, because one day I came home. I had just gotten a job, because I had been looking for work for a long time, because I had moved from Houston to Chicago. And so when I got up there, I was looking for a job, and it had taken some time. It had taken almost like 6 months, and this was pre-COVID. So I feel for the people looking for jobs now. But anyway, so I remember I was so excited because I finally got a job, and I came home and I had come in to tell him about it. And I'll never, ever, ever forget this. He was sitting on the bed facing our window, and the sun was setting. And of course, this is Chicago, so sun sets like at 2:45 in the afternoon, which is ridiculous. But anyway, so the sun was setting. He's sitting there. The lights were off, so it was dark in the room. And I came in, and I was like, guess what? I got a job. I'm so excited. And he looked at me like his head turned, like in the most like scary of ways. He just sat. It was just his head and his eyes. He looks at me And he was like, I hate you. And I was like, what? He was like, I hate you. And I was like, okay. That was the beginning of the end.
What was that
I don't,
about?
so I can only guess. I could only guess, right? I could be completely wrong. But and it was also one of the things that I had to learn as well too. But I feel like I may have emasculated him, right? Because I was the one who found the job first. I was taking care of bills. I was kind of like the man in the household because he hadn't been able to hold a job because but in his defense, he was in the housing market at that time. And that was when the housing market crashed and fell out. And, people were losing homes and people who were in the mortgage business were like losing their jobs. And so he was having a hard time finding a job. And so I was kind of holding down the fort for everything. And then on that day that I got the job, like he had also been looking. And so I got my job first. And I feel like part of I emasculated him. Like he did not feel like a man. And so I asked him, I was like, well, if you hate me so much, why did you ask me to marry you? And it was kind of a way to roundabout get back at me for breaking up with him the first time.
Wow.
Girl. I was like,
that's petty.
And I was like, and you took it to marriage for that, homie? Like, that's serious. You got issues.
Right.
So, and then, he was not a bad person. He was not a bad person. He just wasn't ready for marriage, right? So a lot of his actions in the sanctity of marriage were more, what's it called? He wanted to live like a bachelor, but having the title of husband. And it just doesn't work that way. Because I was like, you know what? I did not inherit a partner. I felt like I inherited another child. So now I felt like the burden of taking care of my kid and him, as opposed to we are supposed to come together as a unit and a family and we help each other out. It didn't feel like that. And I was like, this is not okay. This is not okay. And he wasn't the best communicator. So, and he was Latino, because my family is we're Latino. So like there was in the Latin culture, there's a lot of like what they call machismo, right? It's like the man is the head of the house and they are the ones who provide for the family. And like there's just like a lot of the man, like culturally, is like the head of the household and da 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 da. Well, I was running everything. So he did not feel like a man in his own house. So that was also part of it. But he also wasn't communicating that to me. I didn't know. So it was just this whole thing. And I was like, we need to go to counseling. So we went to counseling. It didn't work. So it got to the point where, and I'm also very the type of person who I will put 1,000% and go through everything. And I can honestly say I've given 150% before I decided this is not a thing. So I finally made the decision, this isn't going to work. I'm done. Because when a woman's fed up, we already know how the rest of that song goes. So I was like, I'm done. So that's when he was like, oh, well, we should go to counseling. I'm like, whatever. You really didn't want to do it when I wanted to do it. Now, no, I'm done. So I did go to one thing of counseling. I didn't respect the counselor because whatever he had told the counselor was already on his side. So when I walked in, I already walked into like like the firing squad, I felt like. And I was just like, okay. You're telling everything, but you're not telling the full story. You're saying all of these things, but did you say, you're giving the reaction, but are you giving the cause of why these reactions? No, oh, you forgot to mention this and this and this, didn't you? Oh, okay, it's a whole different story now. And I was like, what kind of, in my head, I'm like, what kind of counselor are you that you just took? Anyway, that's a whole other story. So we went to one counseling session, that when he chose it, and I was so upset. I've never done anything like this before in my life, but I was so upset. I was like, I am done. Like, I screamed, I am done. I got up, walked out. I was done. I was like, and the counselor was like, yeah, I think your marriage is over. Like, he said it to the guy. He said it to my ex.
Okay.
Yeah, and then last thing, so I was like, so I asked him, I was like, because when we were in the counseling session, the counselor was like, so why do you want to be married to Nicole? Like, why do you want to stay married? And he was like, I want to be an example to my cousins. I wanted this. He went on for 5 minutes of all these reasons why he wanted to be married. And not once did he list because I love her. Not once. Like, all the reasons that he wanted to be married had nothing to do with me. It was the facade. It was the image that he wanted to live up to. So after that, and I had left, and because we obviously went in separate cars. So when I got home, I asked him, I was like, why do you want to be married to me? And he was like dancing around the question. And I asked it again and again. Now, at this point, it was like maybe the fifth time. And I'm screaming at the top of my lungs in my car, why do you want to stay married to me? You don't love me. Ah! His answer, he was like, I don't want to be alone. And I was like, that is not good enough for me. And I left. I was like, I know when I'm not wanted, and that is not a good enough answer for me. So it was my clue. It was time to go.
So this is going on your second marriage, and did that hurt as bad as the first one? Because the Bible said marriage feels like death.
Yeah, no, it was worse, because this time I really thought, that I had put time into it, and I prayed and I fasted, and, and I knew him, like, because the first person, I hadn't really known him very long. And like, he wasn't walking with the Lord, and, whatever. So this person, he's walking with the Lord. We came together, and it was worse, because now it's like, oh my God, I did it again. I am now a 2-time divorcee with a child. So everything that I went through the first time, it was even worse now, because I thought that I had prepared, and I thought that we had, I thought I was really doing things different.
And you know what? I think sometimes, and not to discredit this, but sometimes people feel like if he of God, I'm of God, we reading the Bible, we going to church, that you're going to have this perfect marriage. And I know people that are, hey, this and that, and it really does not mean anything. Like, sometimes be the worstest marriages ever. And don't get me wrong, it's important to have a man that loves God, because if you don't love God, he won't know how to love you and to run a household. But I think another thing that's important is not to idolize that, because men that's in the church can also be just as worse as the sinners sometimes.
One of the worst men that I have ever dated, who treated me the worst, was a man of God who served in the church, suit, tie, and was highly esteemed. Treated me the worst. And I was like, y'all can keep that. Sorry. So there's a place for it, but it's not the end all be all. That's for sure.
So I know we're on a time frame. What was your healing process like for this second marriage? You thought you did everything right. You dotted your I's, crossed your T's, and it's like, this failed. Did it start to make you feel like you failed as a person?
Of course. But the saving grace for me on that one was that I know that how I was being treated was not right. And I did not want my daughter to grow up thinking that this behavior is okay. Because if I stayed in it, she would be conditioned to think, well, this is okay because that's what marriage is like. And I did not want her to grow up with an example like that. Honestly, if I did not have my daughter, I probably would have stayed a little bit longer to work through that. But I was like, I don't want her to grow up seeing that it is okay to be treated like this. So it was like, it's time for me to go.
So after 2 marriages and both of them fail, how, like at that point, how did you see yourself? Like, was there any shame? Because I told my friend, like, when you get divorced, sometimes it's like a sense of shame or embarrassment. And she was like, no, it shouldn't be. But I'm like, you do go through a stage of feeling shame, embarrassment. It's like, did you experience those emotions? Is it okay to experience those emotions, to have those emotions?
Of course, it is absolutely normal. And of course, it's like, it's so embarrassing because every, form that you fill out when you go to the doctor, it's like single, married, divorced. And I'm like, oh, like, like, why is that there? And I'm like, yeah, I'm divorced again. But I have to tell you that the healing process was the same. Cry a whole bunch, continue to ask God to help me work on me. What could I have done better? How can I do better? What is it in me that is still attracting people that I'm not getting the clue of? What is it? What am I missing? And just resting in the fact that I made a mistake and it's okay because it happens. Just because things end in a divorce doesn't always necessarily mean something's wrong with you. Sometimes it's literally just a mistake. The same way you're on the highway and you accidentally take the wrong exit and you just have to get back on the road. Sometimes that's just all it is. Sometimes it means, yes, you always do self-reflection. You always look at yourself, but it's like, I have to forgive myself and realize, okay, so I chose incorrectly. Forgive myself and keep it moving. But the important thing is I cannot allow myself to be embittered by it because that's only going to hurt me. And if God does have somebody else out there for me, I am closing off that door. And, I think love is a beautiful thing. And I don't want to be embittered by that and hold me back because all that's going to do is eat me up and make my soul dark. So I have to give him also the benefit of the doubt that, he was only doing the best that he knew as well. And I have to forgive him and let it go and hope that he does the same thing, seeks after God, tries to fix himself so that when he has the opportunity to bring another female into his life, that he doesn't do the same thing to her. But outside of that, yeah, but it takes some time.
How long did it take for you to heal? Did it take years, a year?
I don't really know because I really tried just not to focus on it. I don't know, maybe a year or two. Maybe a year or two. But I was intentional about not being bitter. So, basically, but I'm also that type of person. When I'm done, right? So I'm not like looking for you on Instagram to see what you're doing. Like, you are wiped out. It's like you did not exist. Pictures are gone. Anything that's going to remind me of the hurt is removed. It's almost like you didn't happen. And so I do that to give myself the chance to heal because I'm not constantly being reminded of what you didn't do and how you didn't do this. And, because the thing is, you married him. He wasn't 100% bad. He wasn't 100% bad because if he was that bad, I wouldn't have entered into a marriage with him. Right. So there's a lot of qualities that are there. There was just some stuff that just couldn't get worked out for my mental health and well-being, and that for my daughter. Because the thing is, I'm totally not for divorce. I'm really not, even though I've had 2 of them. But I also don't believe in staying in death. If somebody doesn't want something, you can't make somebody want something that they don't want. And I love myself enough to be like, I know I joke about it, but I'm like, I know when I'm not wanted, and I'm not, and it's not like I'm not wanted. I'm like, I know when I'm not wanted, and I love myself enough to not subject myself to that. But yeah.
I think that, once divorce, healing is an important process. Because the first thing, when I got divorced, the first thing you hear people say, you ready to date, you ready to do this. And the next thing people know is, okay, I'm over him. Let me go to the next thing. No, 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 no. You got to pump the brakes and stop for a minute and just take a second to see what went wrong. Did I contribute to this? What can I do better? God, what things I need to purge out of me? God, allow myself to heal properly, because what's happening when people don't allow themselves to heal, we continue to repeat cycles over and over again and get into another relationship. And then you got broke people hurting broken people, broke people hurt
people hurt people. Exactly.
And then now you got this cycle that's going on because no one is taking the proper time to really sit back and evaluate, because no one wants to deal with the pain. No one wants to deal with the hurt. What they want to do is like, you know what, this hurted me. Let me move on to the next thing. So just to keep me from feeling this pain. Now you taking all this stuff into another relationship. And then when you go to another relationship, you're like, it's his fault or it's her fault. No, it's your fault, because you never stopped and took the proper time to heal. So stopping, no matter how bad it hurts, and to deal with it, to heal, allowing yourself to become new and made whole all over again is just so important.
So important. Just because you sweep something under the rug doesn't mean the floor is not dirty. Ooh. It might look pretty, but it's still there. And eventually you're going to have to pick up the rug, and it's still going to be there. So don't sweep it under the rug. You've got to sweep it out. You got to mop the floor. You got to let it air out. Even after you clean up, stuff still has to air out. The floor's got to dry before you can walk back on it, because all you're going to do is just get it back dirty again. So you got to, yeah.
And I think so it's important to be vulnerable. It's okay to say, I'm hurting right now. This hurts. Yes. Me. Really expressing those true emotions. Don't be like, well, I'm good. He missed out. Like really taking the time to like, I'm hurting. This hurt me. I cried today. I cried yesterday. Admitting to yourself and just to have, because in those transparency moments is healing. And you can't take place if you don't be transparent about it.
And it's so important to have that support of somebody who you can cry to, and you're having a bad day and you're just like, I know, but I miss him and I don't want to be alone. And be like, girl, I understand. But remember when? And they'll be like, whoop, yep, then that sobers you up. Because loneliness is evil. They'll be like, oh, I'm so lonely. All right. Oh, yeah, but he was beating the crap out of you. Remember that? I remember that night. Come home for a week. Oh, but right now you feeling lonely. Let me remind you. And then you're like, oh, right. Okay. Thank you, Lord. Thank you. Right. The right one is coming. The right one is coming. So, right. And it's important to deal with that because, again, like we had talked about earlier, you don't want that same thing to manifest back in your life again. You just got rid of one. You just sold a junk car. Why are you going to take good money to go buy another junk car?
Ooh, shame.
You don't want that. I'm just saying, right? It's just like, so, be patient.
And you know what? I think that if us as women, in which I'm going through the process, focusing on purpose. Don't wake up. Is my husband here? Have I met my husband grinding me? No. Just forget about it. When you just do life, live life, focus on yourself, the husband gonna come. And people, I'm so traditional. I know people are like, well, you got to get out there to meet somebody. I feel like when God got somebody in store for you, he's not gonna say, well, Nicole didn't go to the grocery store today or to the club. I'm not gonna give her a husband. God will open the door, ladies. Let's listen. He will open the door and bring him to you. That means the gas station, the flea market, the maintenance man that's coming to fix them at your house. He will bring them to you. So don't get caught up, well, I ain't going nowhere. So I'm like, I don't believe in that. I just don't believe God can be like, well, Nicole's not going anywhere, so I'm not going to give her a husband, this year. Focus on you. Focus on your purpose. Focus on allowing yourself to become a better woman, because when you do that, you take the focus off of marriage. And the next thing you know, it comes. Because the Bible said, be anxious for nothing. But when you're not focused on yourself, hey girl, hey Nicole, girl, my husband came, girl, my husband came either, girl, when our husband gonna come, girl, I don't know, girl, what we gonna, no, we don't do that around here. We just don't do that. That's not cute.
When you start focusing on taking care of yourself, right? So maybe you start going to the gym, or you start walking, or you start reading more. So you decide to go take a class, or you start volunteering, and you start taking care of you. You're going to be now in the avenue, in the path of somebody else who is doing the same thing. And then and that's where that connection is going to be. So people who are doing something and working towards getting better, you're going to fall into that path. I mean, that's why a lot of times people who work out, how'd you meet? Oh, working out. How'd you meet? At salsa class. How did you meet? And not because you were going out doing stuff, but you were working on you.
Oh, that's
right.
Good.
I went to my favorite, I went to my favorite juice bar because and lo and behold, he walked in because he's taking care of himself too. When, so starting to develop healthy patterns and healthy things, it's whatever it is, it's going to attract, be it spiritually. So if you're going to church more, if you're going to Bible studies, or whatever, you're going to connect with people who are walking that path. But if you are stationary, how are you going to connect? If you are not working on yourself, how are you going? You don't want to connect with other people who are not working on themselves. I got to tell you that right now, because that's disaster waiting to happen.
And one last thing I do want to say before we wrap this up is that, no matter how many relationships or marriages that you go through, relationships or marriages, and you was talking about bitterness, do not develop that spirit of bitterness, because what happens is, oh, these men ain't no good, so I ain't, boo, boo, boo. And so then when you date somebody, then you're like, oh, he ain't no good, because you to put that in your mind, and that's what you to put in the atmosphere, and that's what you're pulling in. So yeah, we know that there's 90 men out there that's no good, trust, but we ain't in denial about that by any means necessary, but still focus on, well, you know what, God got something great in store for me. Something good is going to happen for me. And I was talking to someone, and they say it's a shortage of men out here. And then I caught myself saying that. And I was like, wait a minute, God ain't never been a shortage of anything when it comes to God. I ain't never in the Bible where he was shortage of anything. He always supply needs, So there is some men out there, and they're ready to be supplied according to God's will when he's ready. So let's clear this up. There's no such thing as it's a shortage. You just haven't positioned yourself to receive what God has in store for you.
Also, I heard somebody say, they were like, why is it that we make an assumption whenever a woman says there's no good men out there, that she's a good woman?
That's good.
There's no, because they don't want to put up with your crap, because they don't want to, they're out there. Just like there's good women out there, because men will say the same thing. They're there. But again, like you said, are you positioning yourself? And the best way to position yourself is to work on yourself and have that relationship, to develop your relationship with God and work through that. And it will just happen. You won't have to force it. It will just happen. It will happen.
And I think the last thing is this: keeping God in everything. Like, when you meet a guy, don't wait 5 minutes later to pray, say, God, is this my husband? When you meet him at the gas station, hey, God, I just met Bobby at the gas station. God, is this guy got my best intentions? God, if not, God, remove him. Because I learned, before I got married, I learned that bringing God into everything, because God said be prayerful about everything, that it will go ahead and eliminate. Because what happens is you end up spending time with people, 5 months, a year, 2 years, and it's not even the person. Well, did you bring God into it the first time? Did you ask him in the beginning? And even though you may bring God into it, like when I got married, I brought God into it in the beginning and say, hey, God, is this not the man for me? And it still, didn't happen. It still failed. But at the end of the day, at least I won't have that guilt. Like, well, did I ask God or did I just do it? At least I know from the beginning I did things right and it just didn't work, rather than carrying the guilt like, I didn't even ask God about it anyway. And then you start to beat yourself up about it.
Right. And also, going back to like what Miles Monroe said, right? Because God could be in the middle of it, but it still takes people to communicate and have respect and wisdom and knowledge. So yes, it could be. That's how I was with my second one. But marriage is work. And if you're not willing to put the work in, it doesn't matter how much God is in it. If y'all aren't putting the work in, God could be sitting up there right with you and then walking to the courthouse with you, be like, you should have just worked a little bit harder. To a point, right? There's some things like if you are being abused, and there's always those lines to be crossed. But yes, God needs to be absolutely in it. And the person who I love the most is Joyce Meyer. That woman is amazing. And she is talking about all the time. She would always be like, well, her husband this and her husband, and God would always be like, it ain't him, it's you. It's you.
Mm-hmm.
Time
That's
after
how that
time.
Stormy O'Moran book is. Have you ever read Stormy O'Moran about the power of praying? Or she was saying the same thing, because she was like, Lord, fix this about him. And God was like, no, you need to fix this, and you need to fix it about
You need to, right.
Sometimes it could be some things in us that we need to fix, and we don't fix, and we think it's just them.
Right. Because God could be like, yes, this is the one, but are you abusing it to make it not the one anymore? So it's like, we have to, yeah.
So I know we pushing for time. So Nicole, if they want to contact you, what is your website, your Instagram, your Facebook? How can they reach out to you?
Yes. So so going through this whole thing, I've created a series of like inspirational journals, and I actually wrote a book called Game On, and I love it because on your page, it says it's time to change the game, and that's what I call it, Game On. And what we were talking about earlier about rejection, I've been rejected so many times in life. Like, it's not, I feed off of it now. I'm like, reject me, because I'm at that point. I wasn't, right? But between 2 divorces, trying to go after my dreams, like in my 20s, 30s, and 40s, and being rejected over and over and over and over, from jobs, from auditions, from men. But I'm like, I'm still here, and I'm so much stronger for it. And that's why, like, anytime when life throws challenges, I'm like, all right, game on, let's go. I am ready for you. And so I wrote that, but then in the midst of it, going through and being a single mom was hard, difficult. And so I wrote a journal. Actually, I have one. It's called 101 Affirmations for Single Moms. And basically what it is, it's just paper. I don't know if you can see it. It's just paper, blank paper, but on every other page, there's an affirmation. Your best is good enough. Your ability to remain calm is uncanny. You really know how to stretch your dollar. It's just words of affirmation to get you through the challenges in everyday life of being a single mom. So those are the things that I do. You can get the journals at Amazon.com, which Nicole R. Smith, or you can follow me on all platforms: Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram at Nicole R. Smith Net. I would love to connect with you. And, maybe we might even do a part 2, because we didn't even get a chance to talk about the fact that I am married now.
We can definitely do it, because I know we pressing for time. So yeah, we definitely can. I'm game on for part 2.
And maybe it won't have to be again at 8 o'clock in the morning, but I want to throw that out there, because healing is possible. And even after I felt like I wasn't wanted and was thrown away multiple times, and not only just from being divorced, but like even boyfriends, right, that I had to keep the standard and be like, no, and wonder, am I really ever going to find anybody? Because is what I'm really asking for really that much, just to get up, go to work, and be nice? Is that really so hard? Am I really asking a lot that people can't step up to that? And being okay with, if they don't rise up to it, letting them go, but still understanding the knowing that I am worth it. And then, yeah, girl, we're gonna have to have a talk, because going through the whole meeting the man who I thought I was gonna marry, and God brought this amazing man into my life. And then he died from cancer. And I was like, and he had set the bar so high. I was like, okay, I am now convinced I'm going to be alone for the rest of my life, because it really didn't get any better than him. And he died. And when you talk about being mad at God, I was like, cruel, how cruel to wait this long and have the bar set so high and somebody to come and surpass the bar, and then you take him away from me. I was like, Lord, that's not okay. Not okay. But I'm happy to say, even after through all of that, I am 46 years old, just turned 46. And recently remarried, and happy and loved, and learned a lot, and working through it, right? It's I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, it's all bliss. It's work. But the difference between this one and all the rest is I have a partner who's willing to work for it too.
That's good. That's good. Well, yeah, we definitely let's do a part 2 and bring that in, and we'll talk about that after we get off of here. So you guys, there you go, you have it. I gotta get that so I can play la la. I can do a dance. High heels and destiny. That's cute. But thank you so much just for coming on and sharing your story. And I pray that it encourage women that, divorce do feel like death, but you can overcome it with the strength of God. Don't beat yourself up. God got great things in store. Even if you wasn't your best in your first marriage and you fell at some things, it's okay. Grab your bag and you can do it again. You can do it again, and you'll get it right the second time. So whether you was great the first time or bad the first time, hey, you can still get it right no matter what. Yeah. So thank you so much for just coming on. I love your personality, girl. We'll be on here all day just laughing. It's
all day. Like, that was my boss. My boss was calling me. I'm like, oh, I better go because my boss is calling me. Time to go to work. But this is so important. And like you said, I really just hope somebody takes something from it. And if it can encourage anybody, that's why I talk about it. That's why I'm so transparent. So, yeah.
Well, thank you, Nicole. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
So you ladies, you guys have a great day. And we want to thank Nicole Smith for just coming on to High Heels and Destiny. Bye-bye.
Hey. Bye-bye.